Washington, CNN. There's nothing more fundamental to President Donald Trump's political philosophy than a vision of the relentless and uncompromising enforcement of law and order. Trump waited only until the second paragraph of a Stark Convention speech in Philadelphia last year before hitting on the theme. He went on to describe a nation threatened by attacks on our police, and the terrorism in our cities, and promising that as soon as he became president, safety will be restored. Now, flexing his presidential power, Trump is acting to implement that promise, even if his perception of a nation under siege to crime and violence is one not recognized by his critics or necessarily backed up by facts. On Monday, Attorney General Jeff Sessions unveiled Trump's plan to reverse Obama administration curbs that prevented local law enforcement agencies from receiving surplus military gear, including armored vehicles, grenade launchers, high-caliber weapons and camouflage uniforms. The previous White House introduced the measures following violent clashes in Ferguson, Missouri, in the belief that police forces touting military-style gear came across as an occupying force in a way that heightened community tensions. But on Monday, Sessions raised the specter of a war against police on America's streets as he addressed the Fraternal Order of Police. We are fighting a multi-front battle: an increase in violent crime, a rise in vicious gangs, an opioid epidemic, threats from terrorism, combined with a culture in which family and discipline seem to be eroding further, and a disturbing disrespect for the rule of law, Sessions said. The Attorney General also suggested that those who use individual violations of rights by officers to tarnish police services as a whole are effectively inciting attacks against them. Their divisive rhetoric treats police officers like the problem, instead of the crucial allies that you all are. So it can come as no surprise when we see rising levels of violence against law enforcement, Sessions said. The administration's new plan, which could lead to the further militarization of police, was announced 3 days after Trump pardoned former Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio, a vehement supporter and lightning rod for claims of police brutality and racial discrimination. While the pardon raised constitutional and political questions, it was also clearly a show of support for ruthless law enforcement, since Arpaio was convicted of contempt in a case that involved racial profiling against Latinos. Trump made little attempt to disguise his motives. Previewing his move last week in Arizona, he asked supporters whether Sheriff Joe was convicted for doing his job. A White House statement confirming the pardon meanwhile made little attempt to lay a legal foundation for a ruling that opponents said was the latest sign of the way Trump views the implementation of justice, largely through a political lens and in the context of how it affects himself or his base of supporters. And on Monday, he was unapologetic about his decision, though again did not offer a legal justification. A vision of tough policing and was at the center of Trump's campaign. It's also closely linked to the issue of immigration enforcement and how to handle undocumented immigrants, animating concerns for Trump's most loyal voters that helped power him to the White House last year. And although Trump has expressed extreme frustration over Sessions' decision to recuse himself from oversight of the Russia investigation, an uncompromising stance on law enforcement unifies both men. In May, for instance, Sessions issued a new directive to prosecutors to pursue the stiffest charge available in every criminal case that likely will result in more prosecutions of non-violent drug offenders and tougher sentences, rolling back measures introduced by the Obama administration designed to alleviate the societal costs of mass incarceration that fall disproportionately on minority communities. Trump's stressing of a nation besieged by crime and depiction of those suspicious of law enforcement as merely too politically correct appears to be in line with his long-term political beliefs. But his decision to hit these themes hard now appears to be no coincidence. It comes at a moment when his presidency is in deep political peril, as he feuds with Republicans, deals with the worst approval ratings of any modern president at an equivalent moment, and is hugging his base voters close. By promoting his tough guy persona on policing and societal issues, he may risk further dividing the country. And some critics believe that Trump is bent on advancing the reach of the government in subsidizing military equipment for police. The militarization of our law enforcement is due to an unprecedented expansion of government power in this realm, said Republican Senator Rand Paul on Twitter on Monday. But Trump is also on solid political ground with a TA.